Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? So the draft is coming up a week from Thursday, and I'm very excited about it. I love the draft. It's where teams make their roster. We talk about the draft a ton here and always have. And quite honestly, the Saints, over the last half decade, deserve the benefit of the doubt. They have been one of the elite teams since 2017 at this game. Now, there were some not-so-great drafts prior. 2014 and 2015 were laughable, but Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis' first draft back in 2006, and then from 2017 on, they've been really good. And so they deserve the benefit of the doubt when they do things that some perceive as wacky. And some people have looked at this draft in particular, with the Saints doing the deal with the Eagles and giving up next year's one for 2 first-round picks in this year's draft, next year's one and a future 2. They've looked at that and said, man, the Saints have kind of mortgaged their future for this year's draft in what's not even a deep draft at the top. And that may be true, or maybe they've positioned themselves to do one of two things. Add starters to a team they feel is a contender now. That's one, which I tend to believe. Or maybe they've positioned themselves actually to do something they seldom do, which is move back. Before you roll your eyes, because I get it, that's not what the Saints do ever. Peter King on Football Morning in America on Monday talked about a convo that he had with Mickey Loomis, where Mickey basically told him that they feel like they can get 3 players in the top 20 to 25 on their board with their 3 top 50 picks. Just the way that other people's boards look and players drop, whatever. Well, on his podcast, Peter King sort of elaborated on the conversation with Mickey Loomis. Now, one thing is that Mickey Loomis was candid with Peter King, saying that they believe that they're going to get 2 players very high on their board at 16 and 19 if they stay there.
Loomis's point to me is that he said, let's say that 2 of the top 15, we stay right where we are, and we get 2 of the top, let's say, 15, 17, 18 players on our board. Let's just say we do that. He goes, I'm telling you right now, there's 2 guys in that area where we think are going to be there's 2 guys we really, really like a lot. And we think that if we do nothing else and just sit here, we're going to get 2 players who can help us right away.
Okay, so if they stay there, it was part of the reason they did the deal to be there, to position themselves, because they feel like they're getting 2 starters right away. And we talked about this a lot. I've said it. Look, Saints were 9-8 a year ago. I think they're better today than they were week 18. Your offensive line is healthy. I know you lost Armstead, but you didn't have him for half the season last year anyway. You have Jameis back. You have Mike Thomas back. All the guys that were injured are back. You're better today than you were at the end of the season. Now you add 2 first-round immediate starters. Think about adding Lattimore and Ramczyk in 2017, what that did for that team. What if you have a redo on that with the 16th and 19th picks? In Loomis's mind, it makes sense, and there is some validity to it if they're that bullish on that prospect. But Peter King relaying his convo with Mickey Loomis sounded like Saints might have another option. Number 2.
One of the things that we did talk about is that in his mind, he said, we absolutely are not done. In the next 3 weeks, we're going to be listening because obviously there are other players that we're very interested that are probably going to go earlier than we pick. And the value of picks in this draft, everybody says, well, it's going to be really different. You're not going to have teams lusting over it and making huge trades.
So he gave an example of what happened just 1 year ago. Again, this is Peter King relaying a conversation he had with Mickey Loomis. And this is obviously on the record if Peter King is quoting Mickey Loomis and then sort of regurgitating this. He gave an example of what happened in last year's draft and said this is the position the Saints could be in this year.
He brought up the Chicago Bears trade up with the New York Giants last year in the draft. Remember, the Bears go up from 21 to 11, and they trade this year's number 1, and then, there was other picks involved. But in essence, in order to move up 10 spots from 21 to 11, the Bears gave, the following year's first-round pick. So now that pick, basically with the Giants have the 5th and 7th picks in this draft. And Loomis's point was, you never know if there's going to be a team that, as one of our picks approaches, is going to be desperate to move up. He said, let's say one of the quarterbacks is there that somebody really wants. And who knows, they may trade up and we may be able to get a bounty for it.
That's what the Bears did a year ago. They moved up to take Justin Fields at 11. When Fields fell out of the top 10, the Bears were like, that's our guy, we got to go get him. So they did. They were willing to give up next year's 1 to move up 10 spots. Now that turned into a top 10 pick this year, but they got the guy they feel is the franchise, their future, their franchise. So, by the way, if you saw Mel Kiper's latest mock draft, he has Kenny Pickett going 20th, which means he would be on the board when the Saints make both of their picks. Now, again, that's just one man's mock draft, but what if Pickett slides? And what if there's a quarterback-needy team that sees value in Kenny Pickett in the mid-late teens? And so they're willing to go up maybe in front of New Orleans or to move New Orleans out of that spot to get Kenny Pickett. Mickey Loomis is telling Peter King, we got 2 options. We feel like we're a contender now, and I do agree with him. We're a contender now, and we could stay at 16 and 18, and with the way our board looks, we think we're going to get 2 starting players right there. Or, as the draft plays out, if one of those quarterbacks falls, as Malik Willis has seemingly elevated himself to the number 1 quarterback on this board, or in this draft, if Willis comes off the board and you see Pickett slide because people are gobbling up those offensive linemen in this draft, if they're gobbling up the top wide receivers in this draft, there's some really good defensive line prospects, of course, and you see Pickett start to slide, maybe there's a team that wants to jump up and get their franchise the way the Bears did a year ago. They moved up 10 spots to get Justin Fields. I don't know what team that would be, but if you're the Saints, that would certainly be a way to recoup next year's number 1 that you just traded away. And there's also the whole lingering conversation about if Sean Payton gets back into coaching next year, there's a team that would have to give up draft assets for the Saints to let Sean Payton out of his contract. So what the Saints gave up for this year, they could recoup in a trade this year or with Sean Payton, or they could make the picks and make this year's team immediately better. And oh, by the way, what if you do move back in round 1 with a team that wants to trade up 10 picks? Just throwing that number out, 10, whatever the number is. And there's a top 15 player you have on your board that's sitting there in the mid-20s, mid-late 20s. You still get incredible value there. Basically, Mickey Loomis is saying, we have set this up to where we have 2 great options. And wherever it goes, we're going to be good. And Loomis, and this is Peter King essentially reiterating that from Loomis.
Mickey Loomis's feeling with the Saints right now is, we'll be very happy to sit there with 2 picks in the teens and use both. But we also just want to keep our eyes and ears open because we might be able to get a great trade as we get closer to the draft or even on draft night and teams get desperate.
When you hold the cards, when you are the team that is not desperate, when you are content and thrilled to make picks at 16 and 19, and another team is desperate for something you have all the leverage in a negotiation. And the Saints feel like they're in that position. I know this is a smoke screen season when everybody's just throwing out what ifs and potentials to throw other teams off their scent. But this is one that I legitimately believe the Saints have two great options. They have two great options. Make the picks at 16 and 19, or if someone's desperate, recoup assets and move back. Either way, you're still going to make 2 first-round picks this year. Make 16 and trade 19, or make 19, and you trade 16, you make 19, and then the second one later in round 1, whatever it may be, and recoup a 1 next year if it comes to it. I get it. The Saints don't trade back. It's not what they do. But this is also an unusual circumstance where they have 2 1s. It worked out for them last time in 2017. They got Lattimore and Ramchick. Let's see what they do with that draft capital this year. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.